The wind scraped at his coat as he sat on the splintered bench outside the convenience store, holding a crumpled paper bag like it was something sacred. Inside, half a tuna sandwich, the kind with too much mayonnaise and too little meat. Still, it was warm. Still, it was enough. A man passed, eyes down. A couple laughed, not noticing him. And then she arrived. She wore a coat too fine for this street, hairpinned like she'd been somewhere important. But her eyes, they were tired, the kind of tired that came from hunger you didn't admit to. She sat 2 benches down, pretending not to look his way. But her hand, trembling as she gripped her empty coffee cup, gave her away. He didn't speak, just stood, walked the few steps, and offered the sandwich without a word. She looked up, startled. "I'm fine," she said, voice shaky. He nodded once, gently placed the sandwich on the bench beside her, and walked away. She stared at it. Then at him. His back was hunched, hands deep in coat pockets. The wind caught a tear at the edge of her eye, and it vanished before she could catch it. She looked down at the sandwich, then back at him. He didn't look back, not once, but she couldn't take her eyes off him. Her breath caught in her throat. Not from the cold, but from something she didn't understand. She picked up the sandwich, unwrapped it, and took the smallest, quietest bite. From a distance, the man paused at the alley's corner. He didn't turn around, but for the first time in days, his lips curved upward just a little. Tomorrow, he'd go hungry. Tonight, he'd fed someone. He stepped into the apartment as the door creaked open behind him. It smelled faintly of laundry detergent and old carpet, the kind of place that stayed clean only because someone worked hard to make it that way. A small voice from the kitchen. "Did you eat, Dad?" He didn't answer right away, just hung up his coat, wiped his shoes, and walked in. His daughter, maybe 8, sat at the wobbly table, legs swinging, a textbook open beside a chipped bowl of cereal. Her hair was half-brushed, her eyes fully aware. "I saved you some," she said, pushing the cereal across the table. He smiled gently. "I'm okay, Peanut. You always say that." He didn't reply, just ruffled her hair and turned to check the faucet. His hands, rough and cracked, fidgeted with the knob. "You skipped dinner again, didn't you?" He froze. She closed her book. "It's not fair. I can share." His voice, soft but firm. "You share your smile. I'll take care of the rest." She didn't push. Justin nodded, a little too grown-up for her age. Later, when she was asleep on the couch, curled like a question mark, he sat in the dark, staring at his cracked phone screen. A missed call, a voicemail. He pressed play. "Hi, Mr. Jennings. This is, about that warehouse job. There's a placement fee required up front. Just $500 to begin." He ended the message. His jaw clenched. Another scam. His eyes fell to his daughter, her tiny fingers clutching her blanket. He leaned back, exhaled slowly. Darkness outside, quiet inside, but something in his chest twisted, a worry that no warmth could reach. And then, a sudden vibration, a message, from a number he didn't know. Just 5 words. "Thank you for the sandwich." Morning broke, with weak sunlight bleeding through the faded curtains. He stirred first, always did. Coffee wasn't a luxury here, just warm water and whatever creamer packet he could find. His daughter sat cross-legged on the floor, sketching in a notebook with broken crayons. The page read, "When I grow up, I'll buy you a house." He smiled, but his eyes stayed on the letter from her school. Final notice. "Payment due tomorrow." His fingers trembled as he folded it away. "I drew us with a piano," she chirped, "like the one Mom used to play." He swallowed the ache. "She'd love that. Do you think she hears my songs?" He nodded, forcing steadiness into his voice. "She hears everything. Pinatupo." Outside, he layered on his old jacket. The wind bit harder today. He stepped into the cold with no destination, just habit. The convenience store sat quiet, same as yesterday, same as always, except a sleek black car was parked by the curb. He paused. The window rolled down, and there she was, the woman from last night. Her eyes, curious, her hands folded like she was waiting for something. She stepped out, no words yet, just that same silence. Between strangers who've seen each other without masks, you didn't have to do that, she said finally. "I didn't expect anything back," he replied. She studied him. "You still hungry?" He glanced away. "Always." A long pause. Her voice softened. Then let me buy you lunch. He hesitated. She smiled gently. It's not charity. It's just kindness. You remember what that looks like. Before he could answer, his phone buzzed in his coat pocket. The school. Final warning, fees or expulsion. He looked up, and she was still waiting. He stood frozen, torn between the woman's offer and the weight of his reality. The school call still echoed in his ear. She took a slow step forward, coat fluttering slightly in the wind. Get in, she said softly, gesturing to the passenger door. Just for a meal. He didn't move. It's not a trick, she added. No one's filming. No one's watching. Still, he hesitated, the kind of hesitation that comes from too many broken promises. But her eyes? They didn't pity. They saw he opened the door. Inside the car. Warmth hugged him like a memory. Leather seats. Classical music humming low from hidden speakers. A faint scent of something floral, expensive, and unfamiliar. They drove without speaking for a while. Then she turned. You didn't ask my name. You didn't ask mine, he said. She smiled. Fair. Her estate sat behind iron gates and ivy-covered walls. It wasn't just a house. It was a world apart. He stared as it loomed closer. They pulled into a circular driveway. Marble steps. Lanterns glowing even in daylight. He stepped out slowly, like walking into a dream you're sure you'll wake from. Inside, it was all polished wood and framed art and silence. She led him through long halls until they stopped in front of a wide double door. And he stopped breathing. A grand piano sat in the middle of the room, lit by sunlight streaming through arched windows, the keys untouched. The bench, worn with use, he took a step forward. His hands, involuntarily, reached toward the ivory. She watched him quietly. I've heard music, she whispered, but never like what I remember from that night. He turned, barely able to speak. You want me to play? Her voice was steady. I want you to remember who you are. He stepped into the room like he was stepping into memory. Light spilled through arched windows, casting golden stripes across polished wood. The grand piano set center stage, not a decoration, but a presence, majestic. Waiting, he approached it slowly, eyes tracing the keys, fingers twitching by his sides. Dustless, loved. Real? She's in tune, the woman said behind him, voice low. I make sure of it. He looked at her, uncertain. Why show me this? She shrugged gently. Because when you gave me that sandwich, you didn't see who I was. And I think you've forgotten who you are. He hesitated, then sat. The bench creaked under his weight. His fingers hovered over the ivory, shaking. It had been years too many. He pressed a single key. It echoed, warm and haunting. Then another. Then a chord, rough, raw, imperfect. But alive, she watched silently as he played. Slowly, brokenly, a lullaby stitched from memory and pain. His hands remembered what his mind had buried. He stopped halfway through, shoulders tense. I used to play for my wife, he murmured, before she got sick. Before everything. She sat on the window ledge, letting the music settle in the silence. Play for her now, she said. He started again, slower this time. With purpose, the notes drifted like soft rain, hitting places neither of them could name. When he finished, his hands stayed frozen on the keys. The room didn't clap. It didn't need to, she spoke after a long beat. I'm hosting something here. A private event. I want you to play, he blinked. I'm not ready. You're more than ready, she replied, then stood and added quietly, they need to hear what I heard. The days blurred into quiet preparation. He practiced in secret, waiting until his daughter slept. The old piano at the shelter's community room didn't have all its keys, but it had enough. At home, his daughter pressed a crumpled invitation in her hand. Are we really going to a party? He smiled, unsure. It's more like a concert. Will there be cake? Maybe. To grind? Then it's a party. He borrowed a jacket from the thrift store, one size too large. His daughter picked a faded blue dress from the donation box. It had missing beads and a ripped hem. Still, she spun in it like it was made of stars. When they arrived at the mansion, the glow of chandeliers spilled out onto the lawn. Valets in black suits opened car doors. Every guest shimmered in silk and jewels. He kept his head down, ushering his daughter close. Inside, laughter echoed, glasses clinked. Conversations drifted with the smell of roasted duck and champagne. He waited near the side entrance to the music room, fingers twitching nervously. Behind him, two women whispered. Unaware of his presence, "Did you see that man in the hallway? The one in the wrinkled coat? Ugh, you'd think she could at least hire someone who looked the part." Laughter. His jaw tightened. Before he could step away, a soft hand slipped into his dot. His daughter stood beside him, beaming in her tattered dress. "You look like a movie star," she whispered. He looked at her, radiant, proud, unbothered, and something inside him steadied across the room. The woman nodded at him. The piano was ready. His cue, he turned to his daughter. "Stay close." She squeezed his hand. "I'll be right here." And together, they stepped into the light. The music room shimmered with candlelight and quiet expectation. Guests filled the velvet chairs in half-moon rows. Their chatter faded as he approached the piano. Slow, careful, like approaching a cliff's edge, he sat. The bench didn't creak this time. He looked out at the crowd. Diamond earrings, folded arms, curious glances, a few blank stares. One man raised an eyebrow, unimpressed. His daughter stood near the far wall, next to a tall vase of white lilies. She smiled at him, calm, certain. A lighthouse, he inhaled, exhaled, placed his fingers on the keys, and trembled. For a heartbeat, he couldn't move. The keys blurred. His hands froze. He almost stood, but then a tiny sound. His daughter cleared her throat, a gentle reminder. His eyes locked with hers. She nodded once. He looked back at the keys and played the first note. Cracked like dry wood. The second trembled. But then a pattern, a rhythm. A memory dot. His body leaned in. His fingers found strength. The room hushed. Even the scoffers tilted forward. It wasn't flawless, but it was alive. Each note carried a story. Hunger, loss, love, survival. It wasn't polished music. It was truth. One woman in the front wiped a tear. A man in the back closed his eyes. The final chord held longer than expected, like even the piano didn't want to let go. Silence, then a single clap. Slow, from the back dot, then another dot, then more dot. Swelled, polite, restrained. But real dot, he looked up, dazed, dot, and in the crowd. One man in a tailored suit stepped forward. Holding out a card, the man smiled. Not kindly, by businesslike, predatory. The music had ended, but something new had begun. The man with the tailored suit crossed the room slowly, applause still trailing behind him like smoke. His smile was tight, polished. "You've got a gift," he said, extending the card between two fingers. Not trained, but raw, the kind people pay to feel. The father took it carefully. The card was embossed, minimalist, no title, just a name and number. "I work with artists," the man continued. "Real ones, people who perform for private collectors, discreet gatherings, high-paying audiences." The father's brow furrowed. "Why me?" "Because that wasn't music." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "That was hunger. And hunger sells." He walked away before the father could reply. Across the room, the woman watched her smile gone. Later, she approached him quietly near the hallway. What did he offer? He held up the card. She shook her head. "Careful. He doesn't give second chances. But he always takes more than he offers." He said he works with artists. She stepped closer. "No, he works with desperation. And desperation looks different on everyone." He hesitated. "Maybe it's what I need." She studied him, hurt, flickering beneath her calm. "You don't need a spotlight that burns you." Before he could speak, his daughter ran up, holding a cupcake-like treasure. "I saved you one," she beamed. He took it, the card still in his other hand. "Thanks, Peanut." The woman knelt beside the girl. "You're proud of your dad." She nodded. "He made everyone listen." The woman looked up at him, voice quieter now. "So did I." And with that, she left the hallway, heels echoing down polished floors. He stared at the card in his hand. Gold letters, heavy paper, his reflection barely visible in its shine. And for the first time, he didn't feel sure. Rain slicked the pavement as he waited outside the cafe the man from the gala had named. He didn't tell the woman, didn't tell his daughter either. The man arrived late, no apology, just a nod and an envelope. "Inside is your first month's advance," he said, sliding it across the table. "No contracts, just loyalty. ULL play twice a week, private events only, paid cash. The father looked at it. Thick, heavy. What's the catch? He asked. The man smiled like a blade. You're not to mention the woman again. Not to her, not to anyone. She's sentimental. I'm not. A long pause. She's the reason I played again, he said, and I'm the reason you'll be paid again. The silence between them buzzed. You think you're helping me, the father said, voice low, but you're buying silence. The man leaned forward, whispering, You're a man who gave away a sandwich. Not because you had more, but because you had nothing else. That kind of man doesn't survive long out here. He stood, tapping the envelope. Take it, or walk away and go back to your empty fridge. Then he left. The father sat there, staring at the envelope. He could pay rent, buy new shoes for his daughter, maybe even get her piano lessons. He took it, walked out into the rain, didn't open it, didn't call anyone that night. At home, he tucked the envelope under a loose floorboard. His daughter was asleep, breathing softly under a pile of blankets. He sat beside her. Brushing a strand of hair from her cheek, she stirred. Where were you? Nowhere important, he whispered. He looked out the cracked window, street light flickering his own reflection. Looking back, and not even he believed his words, morning crept in like a whisper, pale light brushing against the peeling wallpaper. He was already up, packing her lunch, half a sandwich, bruised apple, warm bottle of milk. She wandered into the kitchen, rubbing sleep from her eyes. You didn't come home last night, she murmured. I did, he replied, keeping his back turned. You were just asleep. She sat at the table, watching him quietly. You didn't smell like home. He froze, knife still in his hand. Then resumed slicing the bread. I was meeting someone. About work, Miss Evelyn? She asked. He paused. No? Her voice dropped, smaller now. Then why didn't you tell her goodbye? He turned around slowly. She was staring at him, not angry, just confused. Hurt in the way only children hurt, quiet and deep. She helped us, she said. She made you smile. He crouched to her level. Sometimes grown-ups. We do things because we think we're protecting the people we love. Did she do something bad? No. Then why does it feel like you did? He couldn't answer. He kissed her forehead gently. But it didn't erase the question hanging in the air. She took her lunch and walked to the door. Before leaving, she turned back. She said, Your music made her believe again. Then she left. He stood there a long while, the silence louder than before. Later that afternoon, the mail came. A small envelope, no return address. Inside was a folded letter, written in ink that danced like it was meant to be sung. He sat down at the table, unfolded the paper. I never forgot the night you played under the bridge. His breath caught in his throat, his hands shook. The past was writing back. He held the letter like it might vanish if he blinked. The ink was smooth, the curves familiar, but the voice inside, it reached into a place he'd sealed off. I never forgot the night you played under the bridge. You didn't see me. No one did. I was cold, hungry, invisible, but your song, it felt like someone lit a candle just for me. He read on, eyes wide. You weren't performing. You were surviving. And somehow, your pain gave me comfort. You don't remember me. That's okay. I remembered you. I found my way. Eventually, I climbed out. I built a life. But I never stopped carrying your music with me. So when I saw you at that store, I knew. That man who once gave warmth through song, then gave his last sandwich without asking my name, he was still in there. I don't want to save you. I just want to remind you that you already saved someone. Let me return the favor. He lowered the paper. The room was still. His daughter had fallen asleep on the couch again. Arms wrapped around her sketchbook, a drawing of a stage, a piano hymn. He looked down at the final line. Please come back. Not for me. For the music, he closed his eyes. The sound of her voice reading those words echoed in his head. As if she were still there, he reached under the floorboard and pulled out the envelope. The man had given him held it in one hand, held the letter in the other. Two paths, two versions of himself, and only one of them had music in it. The letter stayed on the table for days, unfolded, reread, memorized, but the envelope of cash, still under the floorboard, Bills stacked up. Groceries dwindled. The chill seeped in through the windows as winter pressed harder. He worked longer hours unloading trucks, sweeping back, folding chairs for events that weren't his. He came home later, coughed. More smiled, less. His daughter watched from behind coloring books, her eyes tracking every sag in his shoulders. One night, he didn't come home. She waited, drew pictures, left the lamp on dot, still nothing. By morning, the snow had thickened. She checked every room. Empty dot, her tiny fingers dialed the only other number. She remembered the one from the letter. Miss Evelyn answered after one ring. The girl's voice was small. "My daddy didn't come home. He always does." "Silence, Dunt," then Evelyn said. "Tell me everything." By the time she reached the hospital, the hall smelled of antiseptic and something heavier, exhaustion. Pale and thin, and ivy dripping slowly into his arm. She stood at the doorway, coat dusted with snow. He turned his head, didn't speak, didn't need to. She stepped in slowly, each footstep muffled by the silence between them. "I told you, I owed you," she whispered. His breath hitched, not from the illness, but from the look in her eyes. He wanted to speak, to explain, to apologize, but all he could do was close his eyes and let her stay. Outside, snow kept falling, slow, silent, relentless, like time, like regret, like the sound of music that had stopped too soon. The hospital room hummed with quiet machines. Monitors blinked like distant stars. He drifted in and out, breath shallow, skin pale against white sheets. But she never left. Evelyn sat in the chair beside his bed, coat draped across her lap, hands folded, as if waiting for a confession he couldn't yet speak. She brought soup he barely touched, changed the flowers in the corner, adjusted the blanket. Without asking, he woke near dawn, the sky outside faintly pink. She was there, asleep in the chair, head tilted, hair undone. He tried to sit up, winced, her eyes opened instantly. "You're awake." He nodded slowly. "Why'd you come?" She stood. "Because when I was hungry and invisible, you didn't look away." His voice cracked. "I left. Took the deal I know. I thought I could fix everything with money." She stepped closer. "You can't fix a song by buying louder speakers. You fix it by remembering why you wrote it." Silence stretched between them, soft and heavy. He looked down. "I'm tired, I know." She reached into her bag, pulled out a worn envelope, the letter he'd received. "But I have one more request." He looked up, unsure. She smiled gently. "Sing for someone who really needs it." One more time. Just once, he closed his eyes, exhaled. "I don't know if I have anything left." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "You do, you just haven't heard it yet." For beeped gently behind them. And in that still room, filled with second chances and unspoken forgiveness, a new silence began to form. Not the silence of endings, but of beginnings. He sat in the small home studio, sunlight trickling through linen curtains. The walls were padded with soft foam, the air warm with quiet expectation. No chandeliers here, no velvet chairs. Just a microphone, a keyboard, and Evelyn across the room, arms folded gently, watching. "Take your time," she said. "It's not a performance, it's a memory." He adjusted the mic. Fingers hovered over the keys, still bruised from work, still shaky from healing. He looked up. "What do I even play?" "Play what you never got to say," so he did. It started slow, hesitant. Then fuller, the sound of scraped knees, lullabies hummed in hospital rooms, birthdays missed for night shifts. Notes that trembled with failure, chords stitched with love. And halfway through, something shifted. The room changed. The air thickened. Evelyn wiped at her cheek without realizing. He closed his eyes, keystrokes blending into breath, breath into rhythm. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't polished. It was real. When he stopped, there was no applause, just stillness. She stepped forward, eyes shining. That's what people need to hear. He looked down. "I don't know if anyone will listen." "I will," she said. She clicked save on the computer, titled the track simply, "For Her." Later that week, she posted the recording on her foundation's page. No fanfare, just a caption. "A man once gave me a sandwich when he had nothing. Years later, he gave me this." By morning, it had 200 shares. By evening, It had 1 million. Someone added it to a grief support playlist. Another user called it the sound of being held. The next day, his inbox lit up. One message read, "Will you come tell your story?" The hall shimmered with light, not the sterile golden kind he remembered from the mansion, but softer, warmer. The kind that invited. The banner above the stage read, "Songs of Second Chances, a benefit night for the lost and found." He stood backstage, hands calm for the first time. His daughter peeked out from behind the curtain, eyes wide. "Are you nervous?" she whispered. He smiled. "Not anymore." Evelyn stood nearby, in simple black, elegant, not extravagant. "He's ready," she told the stagehand. The announcer's voice boomed gently. "Please welcome a man whose music reminded us that broken doesn't mean silent." Applause swelled, not thunderous, but sincere. He stepped into the light. The room was full, not with wealth, but with wonder. Nurses, teachers, survivors, strangers who'd heard the song and come looking for the man behind it. He sat at the piano, took one breath, then played. This time, the music didn't tremble, it soared, notes stitched from hunger, hope, and healing, a lullaby for every unseen soul in the room. He played for Evelyn, for his daughter, for himself. The final chord echoed long after his fingers. Lifted. The room rose, applause like rain. Evelyn joined him on stage. Her eyes misted. "You did it," she said. He chuckled softly. "We did." She reached into her coat pocket, pulled out a small velvet box. Inside a single silver key. He asked. "To the house?" She smiled. "It's yours." "Now," he blinked. "I can't accept." "You already did," she interrupted. "The night you gave me that sandwich." He looked out at the audience, then down at his daughter, beaming in the front row. "We found our song again, and this time it would never stop playing." The mansion looked different now. Laughter spilled through its windows. Bare feet echoed across its wooden floors. Music, not just from one piano, but many, filled every corner like sunlight. He stood in the doorway, watching a child plunk out a melody on the same grand piano he once feared. Another kid hummed along, off-key, full-hearted. His daughter sat beside them, guiding their hands. "She's a better teacher than I ever was," he whispered. Evelyn stood beside him, sipping tea. "She's yours." "Of course she is." The walls, once silent, now carried stories. Down the hall, a classroom held donated guitars and violins. Another room had headphones and a recording mic. What was once a symbol of wealth was now a sanctuary for sound. He walked past the dining room, where empty plates were being stacked by volunteers. The long table wasn't set with silver anymore. It was covered in crayons, napkins, notebooks filled with lyrics. On the mantel sat a framed letter. "You reminded me I wasn't invisible." His eyes softened. Outside, snow began to fall, the kind that used to mean hunger and cold, but now it meant warmth inside. A full house. A second chance. He found his daughter in the old music room, tuning the piano, ready for class. "Peanut?" he asked. She looked up. "Always." He joined her. Together, they played. Not a concert, just joy. Just enough. The camera pulled back, wide, revealing the house now filled, not with wealth, but with wonder. No velvet ropes. No locked doors. Just music. Just healing. Just home. And as their song carried softly into the fading light, a final voiceover whispered, "Some homes are built with bricks. Others with kindness."